Hey everybody, welcome to Growing Gills Book Club for today. Our topic for the day is chapter 10, the ideal week, your ideal week next week, which after rereading this chapter, I'm really looking forward to changing that title in a future revision. I am Jessica Abel from jessicaabel.com, and we're getting ready to get started here. I am not seeing anybody live. Oh, yeah, I see some live people. Okay, great. So I think we're on track. Just go ahead and jump into the comments and let me know if you have any tech issues that are popping up. But I think we're good. I think I'm getting a little better at this, you guys, after 3 weeks worth of running the book club. Okay, so chapter 10, the title of chapter 10 is Your Ideal Week Next Week. And the reason I titled it that way is I was trying really hard with my knowledge in 2017 to take down the level of like anxiety around the word ideal. That it should like this is a should monster territory all over the place where it's like, what should your week look like? It should look like this ideal week. You've set up an ideal week and you need to come up to that level. And so in the last couple of years working with lots of people, students and clients in the Creative Focus Workshop, we've really recast this whole idea as the aligned week. So aligning your plans and your reality, trying to think about how to make those things match up. It's not about coming up to some kind of ideal. There's nothing ideal, God knows, about our moment right now in history. And so that's the number one thing I want you to take home from this is like the idea of an ideal week can be problematic to say the least. So take that as you will, but I feel like that's a really important thing to talk about. Still not seeing any comments showing up in the comments field here, so I'm going to reload in a second if I don't see anything, but go ahead and pop a comment in there. Just let me know that you're here. I can see there's live people on the video, but I'm not seeing anything in the comments, which may just be like a tech breakdown on my view here. But to continue on, the main point of this chapter is getting ultra painfully realistic about what's actually in your time and what's actually possible. Where do you have windows of time? How can you rearrange things? And how much can you get done in that amount of time? One of the biggest pitfalls I see just across the board is people not understanding how much time they actually have available to do the work that they want to be doing. They just don't see it. It just seems kind of invisible. And I think that's a really super, super common. And also not understanding how much time is in your days or in your weeks that you think like, oh, well, I should be able to do this after dinner. Well, what does after dinner look like? How much time actually is that? How tired are you? Like, how capable are you of working at that time? If you're not really paying attention to that, you're going to expect more than is possible and you're setting yourself up for failure. All right, I am now going to reload my page to see if I can get the comments to come up because I'm sure something's going on here. Just reloading real quick. I think you guys can still see me while I'm reloading, but not 100% sure on that either. Just waiting a second here. Looks like comments are showing up. Awesome. And 40 people here. Yes, people are here. Awesome. Okay. So just the usual Facebook breakdown between what I'm doing and what I'm seeing. So like the main thing that I would want to do if I were to revise this chapter today would be to change the title from ideal week to aligned week and take the idea of making anything ideal out of it, because it's not about ideal, it's about reality. It's about what is your actual reality. So this really goes right back to the beginning of the book club, like the first day of the book club when we were talking about top threes and setting those top threes and getting really clear on what those top threes are. That practice of thinking the night before what's happening tomorrow, like what's actually going to happen, and then what are the top 1 to 3 things that you need to get done tomorrow, the night before, that is a mini version of the aligned week. It's just your aligned day, thinking about like what's in your day, and then time tracking on top of that, and thinking like, were my assumptions about what reality looks like correct, or do I need to revise those assumptions? So that's a kind of uh, recasting of that process. Basically, the aligned week is helping you to expand that out to a full week format as opposed to just a daily format. I actually think that for most people, planning out an entire week, like scheduling an entire week, is folly, because you don't know what's going to be happening Friday when you're planning on Sunday or whatever it is. So the what I would say about that is, if you feel overwhelmed by the idea of planning out an entire week, it's fine. You don't have to plan the night before. Like, make sure you're planning the night before. So this is, I mean, this area of planning is probably what I've learned the most about in some ways, in the intervening years since I wrote this book. One of the things that happens, I think, with the aligned week is that people rebel against scheduling. And the way that the chapter is written, although I didn't intend it this way, the way it's written sounds like I'm asking you to schedule every last minute of your day, and then like, set, alarms and cattle prods and whatever, and keep yourself moving through all of these different like chunks all day, which is not what I'm hoping for you at all. Like, I would rather that you have your day in larger pieces, like in sort of larger segments, and that you are have some flexibility within those to flow through your work. So even if you're doing administrative work, that you have a block of like an hour or 2 hours to do emails and answer phone calls and all this other stuff. You don't have to schedule like each individual thing, but you do need to make sure that you've identified your top priorities and that those things get done first, because if not, that time can just like disappear instantaneously. So it's really this kind of balancing act between creating planning and creating structure, and allowing some kind of freedom and flexibility within that structure. It's the main takeaways that I want you to have from this are radical adherence to reality. How long do things actually take? How long do you actually have available? What is your energy level like? Pay attention to those things and respect the truth, because it's not going to bend just because you want it to bend. So that's number one. Number two is monotasking. So this is something that gets talked about in this chapter, which I think is really valuable, this idea of doing one thing at a time. So even if you haven't been able to 100% double down on one goal, you can still do one thing in a block of time. You can decide, I'm going to do this thing for an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, whether it's a boring thing that you don't want to do, or a really interesting thing that you do want to do but are resisting, like giving that over to that thing and saying no to everything else, focusing on the one thing and saying no to everything else, and monotasking is a key to feeling really in control of your day and getting things done that you really need to get done and want to get done. So this is, these two things will work whether you're a total rebel and you don't want to follow your schedule, or you are really love having everything scheduled out down to the minute. Those are two sort of ends of the spectrum, and anywhere in between. Anywhere you are, radical reality and monotasking. So deciding what you're going to do and doing it are super, super key. And I really encourage you to decide the night before or several days before, not in the moment, because in the moment, that's going to make you fuzzy-headed and feel, shiny object syndrome, and, sort of get like distracted and also waste a lot of time. Like that, getting to the decide phase of the creative engine at that moment is like, you don't want to do it in the moment. You want to give yourself the time and the space to do it ahead of time, not in the moment. So I'm seeing some comments coming in here. Monotasking is the key to feeling in control. Love it. Yes, Megan, absolutely. Amy, radical adherence to reality, quote of the day, quote of the life. Like, this is, we live in reality, and if we can pay more attention to it, we're going to actually all be much happier people. Janice says, monotasking is such a hard thing for A personality type folks. I'm not sure why. I think A personality, I have one, actually can be really good at monotasking because you're just like, this is what I'm doing. And like, I am in charge of this and I am doing it. And I think you could turn that personality to your advantage in that way. Um, so Alexis is saying, it seems to be my natural setting without thinking about it is planning Monday to Wednesday. And then Thursday never gets planned, although it seems that I'm running out of steam, so letting myself relax, which could be your natural pattern. Like you need to take a little bit of a break on Thursday and then you do something else on Friday. Or it could be that maybe you need to plan a time on, say, Tuesday to think about Thursday. So you have a little bit of time to think like, what does Thursday and Friday look like when you're halfway through your week? Because replanning at that point, after things have started to go weird, is really smart. You frequently in the middle of the week and like, okay, I intended to do these things this week. This is what actually happened. This is how much time I have left. This is what I'm seeing sort of filling up my days. What do I do now? And you replan ahead of time. Marjorie says she makes notations in a daily planner in pencil so I can adjust as needed. Very smart. But using a pencil is always good, or doing it digitally is always good too. So Corrine is finding a line week hard, trying to get acclimated to retirement and COVID-19. Quarantine is difficult, totally difficult. And, I've been thinking a lot about executive function. I have 2 school-aged kids, and they're dealing with way more free time than they normally have. And they have great executive function. They're really well-behaved kids who, they're great kids. But they've never had to create an aligned day, much less an aligned week. Like they've never had to decide for themselves, like, okay, these are my goals for today. This is what needs to happen. How am I going to get those things in place? How am I going to create habits that support finishing those things? And it's really revealing to me and my husband how little training we give anyone, really, definitely children, in managing their time and attention. So if this feels new to you, like, oh gosh, I've never done this before, you probably haven't. Like if you haven't been in a situation like Corrine's in, of having, suddenly way more time and way more flexibility than you had before, you haven't had to manage that time, you don't have the skill set. This is about developing that skill set. This is what we do here. This is what we do in the Creative Focus Workshop. It's what we're talking about in the Creative Engine training that I'm doing today. I'm in the middle of it. It's been going great. It's amazing. I know some people wanted to get in and didn't get in. I'm thinking about packaging it up as a replay package with the worksheet. So let me know if you're interested in that. I'll probably post it here if I do that. So Kelly says, let's say someone recommends a good book. Schedule it. I tend to run out and get it and start it like a squirrel. Well, Kelly, you'd want to schedule reading time in the sense that you don't want to, like, reading a new book. Somebody says, this is a great new book, and you go out and read it in the middle of when you were intending to do something else. That's distraction. That's avoidance. That's potentially fear-based decision-making where you're like, oh, this is hard. That's going to be easy. I'm going to go do that. So in that sense, you want to schedule it. It's not like, from like 2 to 2:30, I get to read my book, but like, here's the next book I'm going to read. I'm excited about this book. This is going to be my reward at the end of the day, or, for my afternoon break or whatever it is. And you get started on it if you want to. The main thing is to not let it derail you. Just because somebody says something is a good thing doesn't mean it's time to, that's the monotasking idea. So Megan DeBell says, even if I've decided and planned, I struggle with, oh, sorry, just popped out of my view here. Shiny object syndrome. What I thought several days ago is not always what I want right now. Part of the rebellion, perhaps. Yes, and I think you need to be really clear. Have you actually decided that that is your priority? And do you know why? Do you know why that is your priority? Because I think getting clear on the end results of this, I was actually just talking about this in a group coaching session with the Autonomous Creative Collective, the Creative Focus Workshop, yesterday. We were talking with one of the members was saying that she's a monster when it comes to client commissions and things like that. She just like plows through stuff. But she's been trying really, really hard to stop taking commissions and things and work on her independent work, her own work. And when it comes to that, she can dither for 7 hours before she gets down to work. And when we dug into it, we realized that, like, although she has decided she's going to do this, she rebels against that decision and has everything else kind of right there in front of her, ready to go, like all these other things. She hasn't fully said, this is what I'm doing. And the second piece of this is, in the group we were talking about this idea that you want to attach the end result of what you're doing to your identity. That I'm a person who, makes this kind of thing, or I'm a person who follows through on these kinds of things, or this is how I function. I function by focusing. I function by tasking, and like change your self-conception of being, because most people here are going to have a self-conception of like, I'm a procrastinator, I'm a perfectionist, I'm incapable of focusing, I'm somebody who has shiny object syndrome. Flip that and say like, no, I'm a person who occasionally gets tempted by other stuff, but what I am is this person who, in the case of the student in the Creative Focus Workshop, I'm a person who values my own personal creative expression as highly or higher than what I'm doing with other people's imaginations and for them, under their direction. I value this work. This work is super important to me. I'm going to put time and energy into this work, and it matters. And getting that really clear up front is going to help you stick to those intentions that you have. Okay, let's see. So Susie's saying, lost all my routines for so much of my life. 100%. I think, I was talking this morning in the Creative Engine training about my morning routine, and realizing like I have had, 25 years plus to develop executive function that helps me get to work in my studio. At the beginning of it, I was terrible at it. I like would do the same thing of like days or weeks of avoiding the work and not being able to sit down and not do those things. Gradually got better at just getting my butt in the chair in the morning. And at this point, like my morning routine right now, having to do with, coronavirus situation where we all get up a little bit later than we would, during a regular school year. I'm getting up around 8, sometimes 7:30, get downstairs, or I read the paper, like the headlines on my phone in bed, which is maybe not ideal, but it's what I'm doing. And I'll like sort of toss email I don't need to pay attention to. I don't answer emails in bed, but I like will start things that I need to pay attention to, kind of review that stuff and kind of get it off my plate, get my clothes on, go downstairs, clothes on, by the way, go downstairs, make tea. While the tea is boiling, often I'll like answer a couple emails on my laptop in the kitchen, make tea, and I prepare these 2 items here, a mug of tea and a thermos of 2 cups of tea, and I pack everything up and I come up to the studio on the top floor. And I'm here by like 9 a.m., sometimes beforehand. Say hello to my children. Matt, fortunately, is handling sort of starting the day with them, and the homeschooling. It's not going to be as easy for some people where they are managing homeschooling and that other kind of stuff. But it's like that thing of like, I make the same amount of tea the same way every day, and it's what I carry up to my studio to have as I'm sitting here and doing my work. That reliability and that kind of habit is something that supports getting me at my desk. And so creating habits around your creative habit, systems around your creative habit, have to create those kinds of routines to carry you through when you don't have, and now I have to get on the train and get to work and do the thing. You're relying on other people to give you those rules. You do not have that anymore. You have to give yourself those rules and that structure and that routine. And I know you guys are rebels, but like this is no time for rebelling against that kind of thing. Like we rely on routine. We are creatures of routine, and it's super, super important. Amy says, how granular would you get? For example, I'm going to research my book, or I'm going to read 3 chapters of whatever. I think when you have an ongoing, like a long task that is a task with a beginning, middle, and end, but it's not something you can do in one sitting, use quota tasks, use time. I'm going to spend blank amount of time on research. I'm going to spend blank amount of time on reading, blank amount of time on drafting. Give yourself time parameters, not content parameters. I mean, if you're reading something and you kind of know how fast you read, you probably can get away with like read 3 chapters. Like that's fine. But some books, take more time. You got to take notes, whatever. Other books are faster. Quota tasks based on time are the key to feeling great about your day as opposed to feeling like you failed. Susie says we really let kids down by not helping them develop some of these skills in school and clubs, etc. We do, and the teachers don't know how to do it either. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knows how to do it. This is not something one is generally taught. I think that if you look back to sort of pre-industrial times, everybody did this. Uh, they had routines that had to do with taking care of farm animals or doing whatever it is, household chores, the stuff that they had to do. You regulated your own time in your own way, and children came up learning how to do that. But since industrial times, everything's been structured around school and work, and school and work are incredibly rigid, structures. And one of the reasons students struggle in school is because they're not able to even adhere to these incredibly, like, rigid kind of systems of, like, okay, we're going to spend 20 minutes on this, and now it's transition time, and now we're going to spend 15 minutes on that, and transition. Teachers, like, train about transitions like crazy, um, because that's what it takes to move these groups of kids from one thing to another, which is why homeschool only takes 2 or 3 hours a day, because you're not having to do all these transitions with 25 kids. So that skill of, like, managing your time and attention and keeping routine even when somebody isn't imposing it upon you just doesn't belong to our societal structure these days. So if you don't know how to do it, it's not weird that you don't know how to do it. It's just totally normal. Okay. Silbar is saying, situation is now so uncertain, we can try to be flexible, I think. Yes, flexible, self-forgiving, self-compassionate within a structure. The situation is so uncertain that you absolutely need routine and structure. You make the routine and structure. You can do what you want with it. Yes, forgive yourself for not, like, sticking to the routine. Yes, be kind to yourself. Things go weird. You may have a really emotional day. Something happens. That's fine. But understand that this is what you do to take care of yourself. You create routines and structures that you can rely on. Okay. I see some people interested in the replay. Great. I will make sure to let you know about that when I put that together. I'm going to edit the video slightly and put things together in a coherent way, and then I'll get that together for you guys because I would love to share it with you and get your responses to it as well. Okay. So Catherine is saying that teaching kids to manage their time and attention is a huge source of stress for me. Um, exactly. And I think that if you, like, Matt and I are just now realizing how much this is part of our job right now, which is changing our attitude towards how we're running our days and giving us more compassion towards our kids who aren't managing things as well as we wish they did, because we both know how to do it because we've worked independently for so long. That compassion can really help you ratchet down the tension in your house and help your kids get what they actually need in order to move forward. It's going to be, think about what you're learning here. And all of what we're doing here is totally applicable to children, to spouses, to friends. Like, you can help other people learn the kind of executive function that we are learning here together. Okay, Tao says, I have my monotask for the next day or 3, and I just now received an art commission wanted on Tuesday. Okay, so that is a question for redeciding and replanning. Assuming you want to take this commission, which is not a given, you don't have to take it if you don't want it, but assuming you want to take the commission, you need to look at what you had decided and figure out, when do those things fit in? So do you move them to Thursday? Do they fall off the list completely because they're not important? You need to judge those things. And when you do more work, publish more work, more commissions, more opportunities come your way, and you have to make these decisions more often. The biggest thing I work on with my clients who are, like, at a higher level professionally is burnout, total overwhelm, because they started off by just saying yes to everything that came, and they never learned the skill of deciding what really makes sense and what doesn't, what are their limits, how can they control the inputs that are coming into their lives and limit them. raise their prices, reduce their availability, do other kinds of things in order to make the work that they want to take pay for their time to do the things that they need to do in order to move their creative lives and creative professional lives forward. And I'm telling you, I work for months with individual clients on this. Pay attention to whether you want to take that commission or not and decide consciously. Don't just go like, oh, it's $100. I guess I got to take it. Do you want to do this work or do you not want to do this work? You get to decide no matter what your level is economically. Obviously, if you need to pay the rent, that trumps everything. But there's a very, very fuzzy line between I need to pay the rent and I'm just like, I might need something sometime, and so I'm going to take this thing. That's a fuzzy, fuzzy line, and I need you to pay attention to that. Joanne says, planning has so much to do with analyzing the time tracking. When my planning goes awry, it's almost always because I don't have a realistic grasp on how long tasks will take. Yes, and that gets better gradually. Again, self-forgiveness, replanning the next day. The tasks take that long whether you're counting them or not. So now that you're counting, you can start actually, paying attention to the length that they're taking. You can start adjusting your planning to reflect reality. Radical acceptance of reality. That is the principle here. Okay. Let's see. Liz says, it feels like everything takes 5 times as long as it should. I follow a recipe and their time estimates are always drastically short. Yeah, so pay attention to that. Like, it's absolutely true. There's another fake physics principle. I forget the name of it. There's this funny chart, which is like how long you think things should take, how long, like times 3 is this, how long they actually take, it's like this, endlessly expanding rule chart. It's just kind of funny. They do take that long. And remember, if you're doing these things anyway, they are already taking that long. They're already taking as long as they take. You not acknowledging that doesn't help them take less time, doesn't make anything go faster. So that's where the radical acceptance of reality comes in. If you're planning ahead and you're like, I'm going to make this recipe, it says half an hour, I know it's going to take like twice that, put twice that in your calendar. If it's shorter, bonus, you get 15 minutes back. I'm talking to my dad the other day and he's like, I'm starting to cook these various recipes and like my rule is they have to say 30 minutes or less because it always takes me an hour to make something that's 30 minutes or less. Guys, I got it from somewhere. That's all I'm saying. Okay, let's see. We're about ready to wrap up here. See lots of good comments in there. So next time we'll be doing chapter 11. I believe we're moving on to part 3 of the book. I want to ask you to jump back in here when we wrap up and post takeaways from this meeting. I think it's a meeting that, like, my big thing I want you guys to take away is this idea of alignment, not the ideal, like aligning time and your actions, like what's actually happening and what you think is going to happen. Like align those two things, get them closer in whatever way makes sense to you. The chapter is actually full of lots of steps and tips and all kinds of stuff, maybe way too many. But the main thing is things take the time they take. If you don't allot for that and allow for that, you're just going to feel terrible about it. So don't let that happen to yourself. That's what I want you to walk away with. But go ahead and put comments in the chat here. I'm excited to see all you guys here live again today, and we'll be back on Monday with chapter 11, whatever that is. I keep surprising myself and forget to look ahead of time and see what the next chapter is. So I get to be as surprised as you are with whatever it is. And I will see you then. All right. Bye, guys.